o'clock anyway. All right, let's open up our meeting. Call it to order. On the agenda, we're going to move, Malia has some things to do. We're going to move E up to right under updated parks and trails on number 7. So with that, I'll entertain a motion. Seconded by Doug. Discussion, any changes, or we can do this? Those in favor then, say aye. Opposed? About the minutes from our November 3rd meeting. See any changes, anything?
It was mostly shoreland, we built
Yeah.
that whole-
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Public comment. Do we have any public comment today? Anybody up in the west? We have. On the phone or anything? All right. Of course, done that. Public will close it. 5, if you have something when that comes up, let us know. 6, we have a supervisor here. Do you have anything to say? You just here to observe?
Don't want it.
Okay. That's it? Yep. All right. Oh, you're up there then.
Mr. Chair. Just a short update for parks. Good morning, everyone. Parks right now, everything is winterized in our parks for water. The docks are all out and removed. We continue to try to schedule to get up the deconnect contamination signs up as being scheduled. The snowmobile signs are going up on the Stour for speed limits in the areas identified in the master plan. That's picking up. Friday is the last day on the Stour for equestrian use. That's been going very well. Crews are removing trees at Lotus Lake, some dead pines and stuff. We're clearing that out to make that more a better park to get the dead wood out of there. And then we're Mark, the forester, is working on the Stour Trail, the Sterling Loop, excuse me, with the town and stuff, and going through that and just gearing up right now for the projects for next year and how we're gonna get all the projects done that were approved. Working on that stuff, scheduling. But that's all I have for right there.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Oh, Malia.
Thank you for moving it up. I have to step out a little early for another hearing, but I hope to come back after that. So we did look into the ownership of the cemetery, and I've been working with the attorney that's working with the town, Adam Jarko. I'm of the opinion that it is likely owned by the town as operation of law based upon a cemetery falling into disrepair. And then by operation of law, it would go to the municipality. And in that statute, municipality does not include county, so it would go to the town. If we look strictly at the deeds, arguably the county could have some joint ownership in it. But at this point, there is no question as to whether or not what's happening right now is likely a trespass. And so our options would be if there is continued action on that property, the cleanest way to address it in the short term would be to have the county and the town file a joint injunction to stop the activity. But we don't see any way that either the town or the county would have the ability to transfer ownership or give any type of easement. Clearly, there's no way to give an easement or any right to use the property in the way that it's being.
All right, so then,
You don't mind them.
nope,
Just,
nope, sit down, nope. Nope, you're not noticed on our deal here. So with that being said, I mean, a joint ownership or one of us, right now it's what in Polk County. Is that,
Well, if you look strictly at the deeds, then yes. However, again, by operation of law, the town has the ownership interest. So
okay. So they would have got
it's
it.
my opinion that it's clearly the town that has the ownership interest. I think Attorney Darko really hopes there's a way that it might still fall back on the county, but it's,
Like you can clean it up by getting one or the other. Is that what we're kind of looking for, so we know how that works?
right, right. So you would have the court declare
Which one?
ownership.
So in kind of, I don't want to call it a worst case, but there is the possibility of joint ownership, I think you said earlier,
Of each-
depending upon,
Correct.
if you look at tax deed, we own it, but if you look at operation of law, the town owns it, so that's the only question really is
What to do now, regardless of which.
yeah,
entity.
but I mean, yeah, which entity owns it, or do we both own it today, or whatever? But one of the two, without a doubt.
Yes.
Usually the procedure is it goes to town first, if I read some of
Well,
the laws right, yeah.
I mean, it says shall, the word says shall in the statute as far as transfer of ownership to the municipality in which it lies. But it also has a court action to declare that, which has never happened.
Okay,
So now that everyone is aware of it, I'll be working with.
okay, and maybe clean that up, sure. It says shall.
Yeah, I don't know that there would be a policy issue to come forward unless we wanted to relinquish any type of ownership interest that we might have. And then I would obviously bring it back before this committee. But if it's just an injunction in the short term, I don't plan on bringing it back to the committee.
We got a
Yeah,
question.
go ahead, I would
So-
think so, yeah.
And maybe Jason can answer. But when I looked on the GIS website, it looks like the cemetery is actually landlocked by the two parcels around it. Happen to know? Because if you look at it on the GIS, there's a triangle from the west and a triangle from the east. So technically, it looks like that cemetery is actually landlocked.
Could be right away though, that land. It's
It is
road.
right away, and on Josh Younger's survey, that's when that triangle came about, and that's actually an access.
Go ahead.
I guess for Malia and Jay, email that I got from a local resident said that they felt at one time in the past there was a historical marker there. I mean, does that change anything if it was, I mean, it was there, but it's not there, she didn't feel now?
I don't know that having it designated a historical site would change it because the cemetery law is as far as the ownership issue once a cemetery is left to disrepair. So unless there's somebody that comes forward and says, no, it was truly being cared for and maintained throughout the years, that would be the only issue that might say, no, the county still has the ownership. But I can certainly look into that. Can you forward that email to me? Or maybe.
Can you forward the email?
Imagine I could, yeah. I think it came, well, I don't know if it came through the clerk's office. If everybody didn't get it, then it didn't.
I think it must have.
Okay. So I'll get it.
But also, I think the historical part, I think we still have to protect any gravesite.
Yeah,
Historical
I had two, and
which-
one said,
Yeah,
which is interesting, she said that only 60% of them marked.
yeah.
She felt 40 weren't, and she didn't want anyone to get exhumed,
By mistake.
I have a detailed plat map. Created a detailed plat map and know all the names of all the people. We would never,
But we don't know where that even came from. I mean, you should have to bring that to us or something. You might have to bring that all to us at a later meeting. Find out who the owner is. Sure. Yeah. But I mean, and how they found that out or whatever, through whatever records and stuff.
So, but what, I mean, I think
Because-
what is established then, Malia, is that either the county or the town own.
Or both. Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
right, I mean,
So we're,
one of the two or a combination of the two are the owners of the property. That,
Yeah.
that's a no.
and I don't think there's a way, you can't give easements to private to do that, can we? Or how
Not
does
in
that work?
cemeteries, no.
Not cemeteries. Whether and the town can't either, can they?
You could sell it.
I don't think you can sell a cemetery. can you?
First, you'd have to determine.
We gotta have an
which-
owner to sell it, don't we? Okay, we're right back to where, sure, we'll sell it, you got 10 million bucks, it's out of debt. You know, that's about what, yeah. So we gotta find out the owner first, then we have to make them other decisions. So if we're not the owner, and Lincoln is, they would make those decisions.
Right.
Or if we're both together, we'll all make the decision. So, okay.
But in the
Sure.
meantime, whatever is being done out there should be stopped.
Right.
Yeah.
What does that mean though specifically, like the love and care and time that I've put into it? I mean, I truly believe the best thing that has ever happened to that cemetery. Beautified tenfold, 50-fold. It is, I have.
It's not yours, so it doesn't matter. It's not yours, so it doesn't matter.
Are we supposed to be having
Search.
comments? Are we
What?
Should we be having, are we?
No, we're not gonna have an argument with him. That's why I said it's not his, so there's no argument. There is no argument. You don't own it. It isn't yours. It's just, she just said that. You do not own it. You can't go on the property. You do, we'll call the sheriff. Cut and dry. Until you come back with all the stuff and say, this is not the time to, we're not gonna argue about it all. Because you can do title search, they can do title search. She just said, the state says, Lincoln might own it, we might own it. You don't own it. Cut and dry. You do not own it. So you're on it, you're trespassing. I can't come in your yard, beautify it up and then say it's yours. Fine, can I?
Who's left
It
abandoned?
doesn't matter if it was left. Maybe that's somebody wanted it that way. Maybe they own it and wanted it that way.
out there?
It's not yours. Just say what is to be done with it. No, we're done. We're done.
It doesn't
Get on
seem
the
right
next
to me.
agenda, or if she gets that done, then we can argue about it. Right now, we're arguing over what if. Now, the what if right now is, it is no what if. We own it, and the township owns it. You're trespassing, you have to stay off. Simple as that.
Reason that we're.
No,
we're
no,
there.
no, we're done. Done. That's our, he is done. That is done. Thank you, Malia.
Thank you for moving me up on the agenda.
Yes,
When I do step out, I do plan on coming back as soon as I'm done.
sure. Because then in 2 minutes, we're gonna have the public hearing. All right. What? Yes. That's how, yeah, that's just the way it is. You're all
Come on,
day.
Jay, stay for the next 2.5.
Yeah. It's,
No, we would get done early because we have company, see?
yeah. Yeah. Okay, I don't. There's not much we can get done in the next 2 minutes, can we? Or do you have a little bit of other stuff? We have a public hearing in 2 minutes, yeah,
Not much.
that we could otherwise do.
Well, I guess we could set the public hearing and that for the survey requirement and the condo stuff. That proposed text is the exact same as last time,
Okay,
all the way down to the bottom. So here, and then this is for the sale or exchange of parcels between owners. And that, we wanted to clarify that it's between different owners. And that, and then Steve wants this here, and that to be included on the deed of the property, just to make sure that it's clear that those two parcels are meant, or I say parcels, it's a sliver of land being connected to another piece of land. And that they're connected as one, so that they're hooked on the deed. And that, so that's why that really clarifies it for title. Anyway, and the reason why that's important is, that as properties are transferred throughout the years, and that'll show up on each deed that'll follow then. So anyway, so that was the same that we talked about last time, then we can go down. This here was for our condo stuff and that about not exceeding the normal density of that parcel, same as last time. What I did change it or that, or just scroll down a little bit. So in the shoreline section, because we were talking about amending the subdivision ordinance and the shoreline amendment, it's the exact same as number 4 and that, but that's exactly where we put it in, where we talk about our lot size and that in the shoreline provision, so that we are covered in the shoreline and in the subdivision.
For the condo stuff, all right.
So that's all I wanted to point out. We can take and we can do the public hearing, and that could be done at the second meeting in December if you're gonna have one. Of course, we got Christmas and stuff in there, so I didn't know if you guys were still gonna have one or not, or we can schedule it for right after the first of the year.
Got a couple weeks, so
You know,
what else is coming up?
We have, just off the top of my head, we have the Stewardship Recognition Program. Remember, that's the Land and Waters Initiative to identify exceptional producers. So that's the December 15th meeting. We were planning on having it.
Okay, on the 15th. Okay, so then let's set it up for that so we can get it done.
sounds good. That's all I've got on that one.
Let's keep it moving. So it doesn't get lost. Okay. Let's open up our public meeting. Announcement, for it, please, Jason.
So William Radke requests a rezone from residential Ag 5 to residential R1 for Lot 1, CSM number 1312, Volume 6, page 128, located in Section 20, Town 35 North, Range 16 West, Town of Georgetown. Parcel number is 026-00861-0000. The property is 2.18 acres in size. I've got it up here on the map. The reason for the proposed rezone is they would like to split the parcel into two. Being that it's zone RA5 right now, they would have to have 7.5 acres in that in order to be able to create 2 lots. Basically, you take their total lot size divided by 5 to create it. So if they had 7.5, then that would round up to 2 lots versus being only 2 acres. They're not going to be able to do that. They would create a legal forming lot for that going right here. So this is a 1 acre lot. There is an existing private road that kind of comes up here and cuts through, but there is no easement to come through that portion of it. The easement comes in from the south here up along this side of the property. They can serve these houses, so there's no access issues or anything like that being affected. But the proposed use is to create a house right in this area. The town of Georgetown has reviewed the rezone, and so Exhibit 1 is their minutes, and it was from October 12th of 2021. And the Radke zoning request change, Mark Entz made a motion to approve the Radke zoning change request. Mike Kelby seconded it. All in favor, motion carried. And we did provide the proper class 2 notice in the paper and to the neighbors within 300 feet. So everyone along here was also notified, and we had no objection or letters of support that came back. So anyway, that's what I've got. Pretty straightforward.
You just pointed out there was an easement that kind of crosses right into that 1 acre.
Yeah, well, it's been like a traveled driveway. It comes up here, this brown line, and where it's been used. And the current owners have owned the property for about 2 to 3 years. And so they've allowed them to do it, but now they want to build this house for their daughter. So anyway, I think they've already worked it out with all these property owners to come down here where the actual
Where you
easement
point
is.
the other second,
Yep.
that cross that access to the lake.
It does cross it, yep. So, and that access to the lake, and that is a non-conforming part of this lot, but that would stay with this house. So anyway, it's not gonna be split or anything. Nope, correct.
Now, does it do anything for this, the setback on that one? Does it make it non-conforming, the one to the north there? That, right there.
That garage?
Yeah.
Nope, and that, because our rear line and that for a garage like that is only 10 foot.
So it still meets that, so it doesn't make it non-conforming.
Nope, nope.
So it doesn't make anything non-conforming.
Yep. Correct.
Okay. Oh, there, you can see it better.
Probably 15 feet. So access would be coming out from the town road there, and that using this existing. Just to come up to the home.
Well, it's in shoreline for sure.
It's in shoreline, so the first 300 feet, so like these lots are all R1 currently. And that, so it is a surrounding zoning district, it's not spot zoning, because this is all R1 here. But then that line comes through here, right about right here, where that's RA5.
What is that far back? 300 feet doesn't quite go back to the one on the.
No, does not go back to the town road. No.
All right. Anyone with any other questions? Nobody? All right, let's go through our
Good.
normal process then, because that's, we do that before we vote.
Yep. Findings of fact are basically, you just what I went through and that we provided notice and that the reason for the rezone is to create that extra lot because they don't have enough land to subdivide right now, that kind of stuff. Conclusions of law, and that is that it does comply with the county's comprehensive plan and the surrounding zoning classification because it's right next to the lake there. So there's other R1 that's adjacent to it. That the town of Georgetown has approved and that it meets their comprehensive plan if they have one. And that.
Sure, it doesn't make any non-conforming building. I guess that would have been.
No, non-conforming, okay.
Then that all the people were noticed. Be in their file that we noticed those people that. Take a- Either way.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezone.
I'll second it.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Send our paper one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. So we did B kind of too here, didn't we? That review, so we're gonna send that. That was yours. Ag tourism, is the gal here yet or not?
There, I think.
She coming?
Yeah.
She ready? Good right in order, what did we do?
Yep.
Yeah, because we sent it for the,
Before the public hearing.
sent that for the second meeting, 15. That was that part. Good timing. Right in and get blasted. Yeah.
Good timing indeed. Good morning. This is Sylvia Burgos Toppness. She is our guest. You all recall, we've been looking at provisions for agritourism and educational farm stays. You had asked for someone to come and speak on behalf of agritourism, and so Sylvia volunteered to come as we learn more about this type of business model, particularly if we look to pursue allowing educational farm stays. That said, you have a handout or?
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about agricultural tourism. And I would suspect it's something that most of you know about. So for many, the term agricultural tourism sounds kind of new, but it's an activity that everybody's kind of been part of for so many years. So if you've ever been to a place where you can pick apples, have cider, or gone to a winery and sat down and had a cup there, if you've ever been to a U-Pick for berries, or a pumpkin patch, or a corn maze, taking your kid to a petting zoo, that's all agricultural tourism. And it's about those visits that you and many of your family members have been involved in, but now it's got this term associated with it. Some people call it agricultural tourism, some say agritourism, and some ag tourism. So they kind of shortened it as we go along. In any case, it's something that's not only popular, but it's growing in popularity, not only on the farm, but in all of the surrounding communities to that farm. So as mentioned, I'm Sylvia Burgos Toffness. My husband, Dave Toffness, who some of you might know, and his dad for many years were chiropractors right on Main Street in Amory. We've been operating a cow-calf finish operation for beef, grass-fed, grass-finished beef, for about a dozen years. And Dave had a small farm before that. We set up the farm a dozen years ago at a time when most people were planning to retire. And so we knew we had a short window, and we determined that what we were going to do was use that farm as a platform. We were going to use it as a place or a space to actually invite people to the farm. Why? So that we could actually talk to them about why we decided to farm the way that we did, and to hear about their food journeys. Now, why would we do that? Well, why we would do that is really based on a whole lot of what I saw over the years in various jobs that I've had as one of the board members of an organization called Moses, which is about sustainable ag, and which serves a big part of the upper Midwest. The interest in visiting a farm is something that is growing tremendously. It also comes from my experience and my life. So I grew up in the Bronx. I grew up in the inner city, tenement areas of the Bronx and Manhattan. Fortunately for me, my grandparents, when my mom was just about 12, decided to buy a tar paper shack on Staten Island. And I'm really talking tar paper. There was no indoor plumbing. There was no real heat. We had cold water, but it was on the outside. No things like television or anything else like that. And that's how I spent my summers, in a tiny little village of 300 people. And it was there that I, as a kid, growing up in the middle of the city all winter long, then getting time out in this rural area during the summers, that stamped on me that this is the place I wanted to be, surrounded by this kind of woods and water and wildlife. So when it came time to get my job, my first job, I did that in New York City, but I ended up on Lake Superior as a TV and radio reporter. That's what got me out here. And this is where I've stayed because I love it. Now, why all that biography? That's because growing up in the city, there was a yearning to be in the country. And what I've seen, fast forwarded to today, is that people want to walk farms. So I mentioned to you that's from my life, and I mentioned from being a part of Moses. And I can tell you that that's been our experience. Every year we get about 200 plus visitors to the farm. Sometimes they come for the activities that I hold, special activities just on my farm. Like I hold baking classes. I've been doing that for numbers of years. I hold cooking classes. I have little special events called Cowgirl High Teas, where I actually make 3 course meals on linens and china and silver, and people come from 3 hours away for that. But I also know it's just not for my own little activities, not just me. For the last several years, Dave and I have been part of, in our farm, have been part of an effort called the Eat Local Farm Tour that's pulled together by the Twin Cities Natural Food Co-ops. They do the promotion. About a dozen of them get together, and they promote it to their own shoppers and say, why don't you go meet the farmer? It's usually held on the hottest Saturday of July. It's always like super hot that day. And people get into their cars and travel. They have like a self-guided little map. And they travel an area of about a 100-mile radius of the Twin Cities to visit farms. They actually get in their cars, pick up their families, and go. Because more and more these days, people want to know where their food is coming from, and they want to know who's growing it. So good news about 2021 is that, again, we were a part of that tour. And of course, we're still sort of getting over COVID. So are people willing to go out and visit? And what we found was that in 2021, so this is just last July, this past July, was it about 2,800 people got into their cars as part of that co-op farm tour. The most visited section was ours. So they got into their cars to go west of the Twin Cities, south of the Twin Cities, but our little region of farms got the most visitors, over 1,000 visitors. We are popular and we are on the map, and people are willing to get into their cars and come to Polk. And what do I know about their visits here? Once they left my farm, they went to visit another farm. Or after visiting 3 or 4 farms, they went in town to eat. So they left dollars in our area just through these visits, not just on the farm, but in our town. In our town. So that's some of the experience. And it's not just about me, and it's not just about small farms. Of course, you have much more experience in this over the years, where we've had farm city days, for many, many years, people coming to our area. Many of our larger farms, especially the dairy farms, have breakfasts. People come into the farm. They want to see the robo milking units. Some of our farms have high technology, and they accept tours into this. So it's not just about little farms. It's about big farms too, because when you have corn mazes, you got to have acreage. And that's where you have a corn maze. That's where you have a pumpkin patch. That's where you have an orchard. It's about all of us. And what does the Department of Tourism tell us? Is that when people come into our area, they can come by the day, or they can do nighttime visits. And when they do an overnight stay, they usually drop 100 to double the amount that they normally spend for a visit. So the impact locally is large. That's why I'm a proponent for something called educational farm stays. This is what I want to do, because I have people coming from hours away who want to come to my farm in order to find out how we farm, nearby farms. People have called me up and said, Sylvia, can I come to your farm, bring my grandchildren, and do a wild herb walk? We have an amazing array of wild herbs almost on any farm here. I know about that. We go to the farm, and the kid learns as they're going through. An educational farm stay would be an opportunity for people to come for 1, 2, or 3 nights. 3 nights because that takes advantage of some holiday weekends, and actually get education while they're on the farm. I have had people come or call me about, Sylvia, I'd love to take your class. I'd like to do this, but I'm 5 hours away. I need to stay overnight. Can I stay at the farm? Well, right now, no. But would they? Yes. So we actually draw from a really large area, and being able to have people stay on the farms in this, self-contained units, 3 nights, most, of each stay would be a huge help to our area. Because even if they come for an educational farm stay, yes, we would have an educational component. They'd be able to, when we have eggs and laying hens, they help us kind of collect the hens. They learn about that process. We do pasture walks where each pasture walk is all about the land and our community and why we do what we do. And they go away with information. But just as importantly, we answer their questions. And people come with loads and loads and loads of questions about what it is that we do here in our community and what it is that they can get. But there are always hours in the day where they might want to go and kayak in a close by, lake, where they want to go fishing, where they want to take a bike, their bikes on a Stour Trail or any of the other trails in this area. So many recreational as well as retail experiences that someone would be able to take advantage of if they come and are able to stay. Now, one of the things that we've done, and as you probably know, is that Mayor Paul Isaacson has determined that, boy, this agricultural tourism has real economic opportunity for our area. So we started working together well over a year ago. Oh, must be a year and a half ago. And we now have a page on the Amory City website that's devoted to agricultural tourism. Somebody can click on that title, agricultural tourism, and they are brought to a page that has 33 ag businesses on there right now, farms and ag-related businesses that they get a little blurb, an explanation about, but they can click on the link and find out, hey, what do they sell? How can I come into the area? Can I stay there? Can I talk to them? Can I sign up for a CSA? Most people, maybe you know what a CSA is. CSA is Community Sustainable Agriculture, and that's where a farmer says, hey, if you pay me up front, I will grow this huge array of vegetables. And then during the summer or even into the fall, every week I'll send you a box of what's in season. That's a CSA. Well, some of the farms in our area in Polk County have over 200 CSA customers a summer. This little farm has 200. That other farm has 250. And those people who have those contracts, those CSA shares, they're called, they often come into our area to meet their farmer or to pick up their share because they just want to do it for a day or an afternoon. We have become known to our greater area as being a place where you can come visit and get good food and a good agricultural experience. So that's why I think that our area is so well suited for what would be called an educational farm stay, where it has to happen on a farm that's a full-time ag farm, and that this would be an additional component. So many of those CSA farmers, education is a part of every single box they send out, because it talks about why they do what they do, why they do cover cropping, or why they do no-till, why they do so many things. And I mentioned before, it's not just about small farms, it's about the big ones as well. So in August, there was a day-long event, most of the day, that was put on by the DNR and the Watershed Farmers. Farm Table was a part of the sponsoring organization for that. 70 people met at 3 different farms. Carlson's was one of them. This is a crop farmer. 70 people were in that group. I would bet, I don't know for sure, but I would bet that fewer than 10 people in those 70s were farmers. The rest came from cities. There were urbanites that came into our area and walked away saying, this is like the best thing. I can find out why people do things. And they got exposure to a large farm, a medium sized CSA, and a dairy. And they learned that environmental stewardship happens in all sizes and has real impact. So when somebody comes for farm stay, they can have that exposure to all of the things that Polk County is. And this would be a contribution, not only to the revenue of the farmer, but to the greater revenue of the entire area. So that's why, I think it would make sense that we're getting, just our small farm is getting that many people a year makes sense. Some of these farms are getting 400 in a day. All of that revenue, not only coming to the farm, but to the area, because once people have made that trip, they want to know, what else can I do here? What else can I spend money on? What else have you guys got going on? And they will stay. And we know, we've seen the traffic happening into the restaurants area as well as to our main street. So educational farm stays, I think, is something that can be, I believe, fairly easily and quickly implemented, especially if we're talking about self-contained units. If we're talking about 3 nights per stay. We're talking about maybe only 3 or 4 units per farm. The whole idea is, let's please start doing this. There is a demand. It's been proven year after year now. There is a demand for this kind of activity, this kind of experience in our community. And certainly this is one of those revenue streams, because farmers don't just farm. They usually have other income streams. That's the norm. This would help keep our area vital, economically vital. I wonder if there are any kind of questions you might have.
But we do have, that's what our public hearing will be at. Ordinance for that, travel trailers and stuff to stay. That would be the public hearing in December for that.
Thank you.
We'll know that. Would help.
Yes, if I could get even more information on that, or you can tell me where to go so that I can kind of contact other people, because there are many who can attest to the strength of this kind of a thing. One of the things I will mention, so full disclosure here, we farm, right? But I am also the vice president of the Wisconsin Agricultural Tourism Association. So I'm getting a lot of tourism statistics from the state level. This is an organization that has also helped push for a limited liability law that helps make it a more even risk on the farm, so that people know that. I currently am also the interim, so this is a temporary. I am the interim executive director of the Farm Table Foundation. It's fairly new, and it will have an end date to it, which gives me just another lens to take a look at where are people coming for the dining experience at the farm table and for the events. And I'll tell you, we held one last Friday at the farm table. 25, it was a packed classroom. 25 people came for a very fun experience on learning how to make cocktails for the holidays. It involved the teacher, which was from 45th Parallel. She did the class on mixology, they called it. Most of those people were not from downtown Amory or the city of Amory. They were from St. Paul, Minneapolis, and Balsam Lake. And once they took that class, they went and ate. I'd love to have them stay on the farm and make a whole night of it, and then go shopping the next day. Because that's what makes it the full experience. Right now, they had to get into their cars at 9 o'clock at night and leave. Why lose another night of their ability to enjoy our city? Yes.
Well, just for clarification, you talk self-containment. So at
water and sewage.
So at your place, you want to put in X number of these self-contained lots, or is it where they're bringing their own campers?
They're bringing-
pushing their own tent?
They're bringing their own campers.
So you talked about the person coming from 5 hours away. How are you going to have that person stay at your farm if they're bringing their own camper?
They can roll up to my farm. Why, what are you thinking? What's your question? I'm not understanding your question.
My question is you talked about the person that was coming from 5 hours away. Probably not coming with a travel trailer. Yes. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But, and trying to understand, are you talking own or you own the self-contained units?
They're coming on their own, coming with their own equipment. Some people will always just be coming for the day. And other people will choose to make this another kind of experience. Oh yeah, I have people who come up the driveway on motorcycles just because they saw our cows. We have kind of distinct looking cows. They've got that big white belt. They're kind of unusual for this area. They just come up the driveway. So some people just come for 3 hours. Some people come for an afternoon. Some people come for my 5-hour classes. But this opens up another kind of opportunity where we can actually schedule the educational component for people who have those travel trailers who want to come to the
But I think as the first meeting we had when we discussed this, Bob, I don't know that it's part of the reservation of this committee, but is that, I mean, you're gonna then need that temporary camping permit for give or take a couple $100 for 3 nights. So to break even, if you're gonna have 3 campers a night, you're gonna need, $70 out of each of them. You're gonna need $25 a day just to pay for that temporary permit. When I guess I look at it as we've got campsites around the county, if they wanted to stay, they could go stay for $20, $30 a night. And granted, I get it. They're not on the farm. I guess up front, did you realize that there is the cost of this temporary permit of
Yes, and that's why we're asking for something slightly different. Because people want to stay on the farm. This is a very, historically, this is a very accepted mode of vacationing in other countries. They go to the farm to pick eggs. They go to the farm to sit under a grapevine. They go to the farm and stay there to pick apples. People don't want to come and then have to drive another X to go to be able to stay. They want the farm experience. They want to get up in the morning, gather the eggs. They want to be there in the afternoon as I move the cattle from place to place. So that's why I'm putting it out there.
So then I will say my problem becomes as someone who does is that who's carrying the liability on that? Because once you let them stay and once you've let them, can I say, work on your farm, and that's really, at least at this point, my concern of all of this is work on that farm. If it's chase the cows, if it's hoe the weeds, if it's pick apples, if it's any of that, how do we know there's liability insurance to cover that person? Because if I just go pick my own, I'm out at the apple orchard picking my own apples, I'm there. If I'm at the pumpkin patch walking through it, I'm there. But once I'm picking your apple, that makes me realistically an employee of the farm.
Really, this is an educational experience. They're not getting paid for what they're doing. They are coming there and paying us for the experience. And there is limited liability law in place in the state of Wisconsin. It exists since 2014. The farmer has to assume that the liability as he does for anything else happening on their farm. And these are not workers coming to the farm. This is an educational experience. Just as you ever visited somebody else's pumpkin patch or walked a corn maze? Those things exist all over the place. One of the things that I mean, it'd be kind of fun to, you might consider it kind of a fun thing to talk to a farmer by the name of John Govan down in Menominee. He's got hundreds of acres. He does farm touring on a fairly large scale. Every spring, just for 3 or 4 weekends, he operates a farm babies event where people can come to his farm to pet farm babies. We're talking about goats, sheep, piglets, little horses, if they happen to have any, and chicks, poultry. He gets 12,000 visitors in those 4 weekends. He's charging $10 a head. Then he goes into his next season. He's got a vacation. He's got events on his farm. His last event just ended at the end of October. So he's going from April to October. I was there for his April thing because I hadn't been there before. One of the things he posts, which is a requirement of the limited liability law, and you'll see it on my farm. If you come up to Great, one of the first things that you will hit, because this is the part of the law, is my limited liability sign. John Govin's is huge because it's way up above the driveway. Mine meets the state requirement. Each letter is an inch high. It's fully there. When you come onto this farm, you assume the liability for the activities in which you are going to be involved. That's part of it. Part of it is having to have that sign at every entrance and exit of your farm. But that's on me. So John does this in an amazing way. So he's here. He's got a 12-acre corn maze that is always inscribed with a slogan for the year. So sometimes he's got the Packers versus the Vikings. Sometimes it's in case of suicide, please call this number. So he's got causes that he supports with the kind of messaging that's on his corn maze. But he's got a kitchen. He's got an amazing setup. He's got a separate property with an event barn on it. And an event barn is a growing thing, especially during COVID. During COVID, lots of tourism went down in the state, except for recreation, which as a part of the whole went up. Outdoor recreation. We had more visitors during COVID because one, people wanted to be outside, social distance. I don't want to get COVID, which is totally understandable. But that whole thing with the shortage of food or the threat of the shortage of food. I had calls from states away. Can I please come to your farm? Can I please buy meat from you? People were fearful, and lots of good things happened, especially on some of the bigger dairy farms. They got into the meat business during COVID. People are now used to getting into their cars and looking for the experience that they want. And I think that Polk County would truly benefit having overnight stays as a possibility. These educational farm stays possibility.
But there again, maybe I misunderstood, but you're looking to not have to pay the $195, $200.
I've seen what the requirements are. And you're right, they're pretty prohibitive. But we're not a campground and a campsite. We're talking about a different kind of educational farm stay, which in fact is recognized in other states as a separate kind of category. Because of what's required, it's more limited. So that's what we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for.
Change that.
Right.
And the state.
Well, we have,
Yeah.
so far with the draft proposed amendments, we have 2 permits. One, the annual permit through the zoning office, and then the temporary public health.
Yes.
So that's,
In change it, they'd have to change some state laws almost. Stuff, wouldn't
yeah.
they? That's.
Yeah, so I'm still going
Yeah.
to stick with the theory that my concern is that this is a way to get free help that pays me to stay on my.
Believe me, when you've got a 3-day limit, and that's one of the things that we, that would have to.
I can do a lot on my farm in 3 days. And we have a lot of people coming in already. You've told us you have hundreds every year to your farm. And so I've heard the word tour a lot. And I could I could give anybody a tour of my 200-acre farm in hours, not days, not overnight, not, you know. So I guess and I get the reason of wanting to stay, but if it's truly just a tour and an experience, I think that experience can be had in in the 8 or 12-hour time frame of the day, depending upon what time of the year it is. Without the stay. There again, I'm. It isn't that I'm against it. It's just I am very concerned of what I think it could become. I mean, I realize we have a difference of opinion on what can be done in 3 days, but if I can bring 3 campers in with 3 or 4 people in for 3 days, can do an awful lot in the free labor category. I hate to use that term, but it's the only thing I can think of, and the possibility is certainly there for it to happen, I believe.
Right. That's certainly not what we're asking for or what I'm asking for. So you're right. In other parts of this country where there are these kinds of stays allowed, some people do decide. I mean, I've had people approach me and say, Sylvia, please, I'd love to stay. You know, I'll help you build a fence. I'll help you do this. I'll help you do that. And because they want the farm experience. We get to have it every day and love it and not love it depending on the weather sometimes. But there is a real desire to be on our farms, a huge one, and to experience some of what we are involved in. Can you do it in 3 or 4 hours? Yes, a lot of times. But I've got people who want to come from 5 hours away. They're not going to come for a 4-hour experience and then turn around and go home. And I'm missing some of that revenue for the class that I'm offering. So it's kind of limiting what I can do. It's an impingement on my ability to actually use my farm.
I'd like to maybe oppose Brad a little bit, because I think I understand what you're saying, because these kids aren't coming. They're coming from the cities. My grandkids come from the cities. They stay at our place, and they may chop wood, but they don't chop wood to make firewood. Take a piece of firewood and make it into 3 pieces of this, because they can. And he'll go out and cut down this side, chop them down. Good. They're doing him good. And then they'll take walks in the woods and see things they've never seen before. There is a different experience. You got to look at it that way, as opposed to, I don't have any work. You know, like you're saying, you have, because you have an operating farm. But kids come out of the cities, they haven't put their iPad on in a week.
Oh, and I agree 100%, and I think it is great. I'm just trying to look at the opposite side, because everything that's great, there's also the unintended consequences. And I think unintended consequences always need to be considered.
Almost like a migrant camp.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
Could happen.
I
Not
just
everybody's
think,
gonna be the same.
you know,
So, it's not the same.
because, you're not after it, looking for those poor people to work 3 days. That doesn't mean that somebody down the road, once the county says, okay, here's the rules, that somebody doesn't look at it that way.
No, I get it. I get it. And one of the things I guess I'll throw out there, and maybe this is kind of shooting my own self in the foot, is to consider doing this as a pilot for 1 or 2 years and seeing how it works. Do we keep to the intended spirit of this thing, so that we can actually see, okay, can you control it? Can you deal with it without abusing? As you've indicated, is always, that's a possibility of any great idea, as you just mentioned. So, I also throw that out as an opportunity.
Complaint issue, then, if there's that many complaints, that's when it would get changed back the other way. That's how zoning, that's how we end up with these changes. Things like that. So if all of a sudden, in the middle of next year, there's 50 complaints every weekend, there's complaints that people are camping. Whatever.
I think those are.
That's when it would happen, so.
Sure, I think well, that's why I'm saying, you want to try to pilot? I'm willing to take that, see how it goes, where it goes.
Well, our change will be kind of that way because it doesn't change that. But in the health one, they have to put public health and just deal with that. I mean, that's state and stuff. That's hard to change. That's a year.
We got two questions for you.
Sure.
You talked about Jovens down by Menominee.
Yeah.
Do they offer stays right now?
Not now, they're just busy with everything else they're doing.
In question two, you said something in your presentation about farms. What is your definition of?
Well, that's where agriculture is the main income coming off of that land. Where you're a full-time farmer. Where it's the major occupation on that land.
Okay.
And I think there's another definition that's better than mine, I'll be real honest with you, that I can help provide you with.
So is your farm considered a full-time farm?
Yeah. Yes, that's all we do. We farm. I mean, I sell beef.
How many beef do you sell?
They're small. They're small. The biggest herd I've had is 40, but we're only on 72 acres. Rotationally graze, we breed them, we raise them, I direct market. And I direct market, the niche I have is that I direct market variety packages, so ground roast steaks in packages starting at just 30 pounds to make it attractive to people who are like in the cities with smaller freezers to get them to try even grass-fed beef. That's what I do. I've been doing for 12 years. That's what we do there.
Yeah, no, I'll just admit I had one of them moments. I had a follow-up to one of your questions and it's gone. It's on the other side of town. What was your second question?
The one about defining full-time.
Yes, there, thank you. The thought came back again. So how do we, let's just say that we move forward with this. How do we define that? Because that's been a discussion of how do you, I don't want anybody at the county looking at your W-2 or, my farm schedule F, but how do we determine that individual who says, here's what I've got and I'm a full-time farmer?
One of the things that, I guess is an initial threshold is the one that's used by the IRS. You got to make $1,000 a year in order to qualify as agricultural land used in agricultural practice. You lose that $1,000 a year, you're no longer considered a full-time farm. So I'm not saying that that's your or our definition of it, but where farming is the main activity of that place.
I gather that. I just in my mind, full-time job is understand that all you do there is your cattle, right?
Yeah.
But you're retired, right?
Now, yeah.
So that's that's a different.
So my
in my
husband
mind,
is
that's
farming.
a different sort of. That's not full-time.
My husband, well, there are lots of farms where one of the spouses is working off farm. That's 70% of all the farms. At least the spouse is working off farm in order for the insurance and everything else. So is that not a farm?
It is a farm. I'm just your income isn't. You can't live on $1,000 a year.
I know that. Yes, you're right.
So
That's
that's
just the threshold that
I
the
know
IRS gives.
I know that, but I mean, again,
No, but I mean, I think.
There's so many different egg.
Yeah.
We look at the definition.
What is what is the threshold? Is it,
Yeah.
is it 25, cows? Is it 10 acres of crop, of vegetables? Is it, I don't,
I don't know that that's the purview of Polk County to decide that.
Yeah, what does
Yeah.
it matter?
Exactly.
What does it matter what the size is?
and it doesn't, but they're saying they need to be a full-time farmer. But that's where that's where the majority of their money comes from. So if I have a half an acre garden and I sell something, does that make me a full-time farmer?
I mean, why does it, I guess I don't understand why it matters either.
Yeah. I
A lot of
mean,
different eggs.
if you look at this list, it's from the little tiny small things all the way up to Crystal Ball Farms.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's,
no, but it's,
It's the definition of farmer egg. There's, I think we've been looking some up.
Right,
And
we
egg
have-
has a bunch of different. And
There
farm
are
has
7 different definitions.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
So there's so many.
What
It's
There
a
are,
statute.
there are
If
some,
you're-
there are
If you're
some farms.
producing a product, whether it's vegetables or beef, what does it matter how big it is?
and
For
it
this-
doesn't
for
matter,
this-
it doesn't matter to me. But she brought it up and Mayor Isaacson brought it. I mean,
It's a full.
they've brought it to us and said,
That's
you need to be a full-time farmer
To be eligible
to
for.
be eligible for the overnight
And
stay.
I think that one of the things that we've talked about is that agricultural income is the major income on that farm.
How do you determine that?
I would suspect that lots of farms are actually making it because of the off-farm job. There are lots of farms that are operating underwater who are 200, 400, and 1,000 acres. So if we start going there, I think we're going to find a whole lot of holes in everything. I'll be real honest with you.
No, I agree, but it was,
Just the.
this is what was,
definition.
this is what was brought to us. I mean,
They gotta take that out.
if you want to say we want to take that out, then I'm fine with that. It's just, I'm not going to be able to get over it if that's part of it. And then if I've got my 2-acre garden, can I really not show it to you in a day?
Got back, I brought this up. Years ago, I had beef. But the definition that I had back then from the IRS was, it's not income. It's income or loss. Because you have all these write-offs and you're trying to hold your income down. But I don't think I ever had a year when I made money. But my wife's an RN and I wired. But if you're gonna raise, got more cows than I had, if you're gonna be up to 25, I had. You're working hard to get the hay up and get the place for the cows to stay. I mean, we're getting a little too picky on
Too
income.
many definitions.
Well, and if your example, Brad, somebody's got 2 acres and they're raising vegetables, maybe they're doing educational on how to can cucumbers to make pickles. I mean, what's the difference versus,
I'm not saying there is. I'm saying that's what they brought to us.
yeah, I know.
That's
Yeah.
what they brought to us. There's been
That
2
needs to go.
speakers in front of us and both of them brought, they need to be full-time farmers to us. So if that's what we're gonna do, I don't know what the definition is of that.
Yeah,
That's,
And if that's the definition we need, and somehow or another, we have to have that definition.
yep, I agree.
I
Or,
think they should.
or not,
Take it out.
or forget it.
Take it out of the.
Or your definition of full-time and her definition of full-time are
Who do-
on opposite ends
Yeah.
because.
Oh, we know, we may,
you are-
because we don't know what each other's definition is, so we may be on the same page.
Yeah.
Because my definition is pretty small. But we don't know what each other's definitions are. I haven't given mine,
This is some clarity that we can kind of work.
they haven't
Yeah.
given theirs. They're the ones who've come to us and
I
said,
think are-
you need to be a full-time farmer, and boy, that's as wide open as farming is.
Yeah.
You know,
How
I
you
get,
find a
I get
full-time.
that we need
Yeah.
to clarify.
Otherwise it doesn't.
Yeah.
I
And
don't see
that's-
the point.
See, that's where this part's in there. This is what the public hearing is gonna be on.
O'Connell, we just set the public hearing for the
15.
condominiums and the survey exemptions. We haven't set the public hearing for agriculture.
No, but this is in there, isn't it?
It can be,
No,
we haven't set that.
we haven't set this wording in there yet.
The only thing, and that if I may, Chair, and that is that from an administration point of view, and that the way that these amendments are written, is that we just need to be able to define that what's going to stop some people from being able to do it versus others. And that, because what I see, and that is somebody that's got a back lot and that on a lake, and they have a little class, and there's people from the cities coming out here, and now all of a sudden I got 3 travel trailers and that on the property. And unfortunately, it's going to be Logan and myself and that are probably going to be going out there and saying, okay, do you qualify for whatever the provision might be? And I have no, preference or no opinion on what you guys make that, but I could see that that would be a easy way to get around the rules, and it's an easy carve out instead of putting in all the infrastructure and going to that campground, and that we're just going to take and buy that back lot from Harry, and we're going to say that we're doing this, but in reality, like she says, well, we're here, we're in a recreational area of Wisconsin. Now all of a sudden they're using that lake lot for their boat access, and they're going out on the water and all that kind of stuff. So
Jason, you're looking at my unintended consequences.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
so I'm just looking at trying to administer it, and I think we can do it.
But unintended consequences.
Yeah.
I think we can do it. I think we can do it somewhat by zoning districts, because our class 1 lakes, we have residential, all the way around them. We've got a pretty good border that way, so we could say that these cannot be allowed in an R1 zoning district. That's not going to hit any of your farms because they're not located in R1 to start off with. So that might be pulled out of there. If they are a campground like DN Campground, they're in the shoreland area for the most part, but they're B2 commercial, So, I think we can pull out stuff and we can carve it to what you're talking about. I just think that conversation does have to, be defined a little bit to say what's going to say that it's okay on this property, but not on this. Like I said, a lot of different options.
Yeah. So maybe by districts would be a huge one too.
I don't think Brad and I are against it. We just want to make sure it's clear.
No, I mean, that's,
That's what we need.
I'm not against any farm doing it. I'm just saying is there again, it was brought to us twice of saying it needs to be income based or size based. And what is that? Because I don't know how to get there. I don't know how to say you're a big enough farm, but Doug isn't big enough. Dollar wise, because my wife works off the so I get that. But yeah, it isn't against it, it's making sure of the unintended consequences, as few of them can arise as possible.
Sure. That makes sense.
And that would be a huge problem, because they got a lot of back
Absolutely.
lots that they want to put in there.
And this was
You're like with the winery would have, the whole thing would be campground on the highway.
I can guess in that there'd probably be 3 big weekends, Memorial, 4th of July, and Labor Day, that we'd have a lot of permits going for these around the lakes. And it's not defined and written right, kind of like the whole tourist rooming house deal that we had. That's one of the things as I've been here, and that number of people per unit. How many people can be staying in one of these units? You could be right into that tourist rooming house issue again with 3 units. If you got 6 people in them, a lot of them sleep 6 to 8. You're there, you got 18 to 24 people, and that it could be a big party.
Health side. So
Health is in there. Protect that
two
part.
parts of that.
6 people staying and they only got 200 gallons of water. I think it used up in the sewer part pretty full. I would think, so where do they dump it? Yeah, things like that. So there is the bad
Okay.
things.
Do you mind if I ask Sylvia a question?
Go ahead.
Right now, these draft provisions we have, they're only allowed 3 weekends a year. My question is, for someone who owns a CSA or who wants to host an agricultural educational farm stay, how does that impact your cash flow? If you're going to market this, I would assume some would. Is that enough weekends to make it worth marketing?
I would certainly prefer that it not be limited to 3 times in the growing season. One, because there are, as you so well put, those 3 weekends, we already know what they are. Memorial, 4th, and Labor Day. But I've got people coming every week. Well, I've got people coming every week of the year. We have people even in the winter just come for, a learning experience. I would certainly, my preference, so I'm just talking for me, would be a limit of 3 slots for self-contained units, maximum of 3 nights per stay. But during the growing season, or, I look at it.
So now this leads me back to my problem is now if we open it up for 3 nights every week and we've got 6 or 8 or 24 people, now it is wide open. And all of what used to be my hired help is now my free help that pays me to come and weed or chase cattle or pick apples or pick berries or whatever it is, because now it's just like having full-time help. I mean, I'm gonna have 3 campers with 6 to 8 people in 3 days a week. I'm retired. I mean, I can, yeah, to me, that's, I would be okay with more than 3, I will say. But to just open it up and say every weekend on every farm in Polk County in the scheme of things.
But is it limited to weekends? Because if you open it up, it could be,
It could be every 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more comment, but I sit here listening. Brad, I think we're overanalyzing this because even if that many people come, just mentioned we have the map in our packet. All the places around Amory. You got 3 days and you've got 24 places to visit. You're not going to just stay there. You have a car and a truck. You may go from this farm this morning to this farm this afternoon because you want to see something different.
But they're going to be spending the night somewhere.
But what difference does that make? Like I said, I think we're overanalyzing this.
No, but we're talking about the night stays. I think if they want to go to 6 different farms on there or farms that aren't on there in a day, that's great. What I'm saying is we want to let 3 campers on X property every night all summer long. So you want to open up a campground on every farm in Polk County, because that's what it is.
So I don't worry about
not today.
Well, I've
But it
actually
could.
done a survey of the farms.
it. I think we get really tied up in it could. I mean,
But you said you said in your,
Head into, well, there's all kinds of things that could happen.
Right.
we spent a lot of time at the county in the last 3 years on things that could happen
We still do.
and still do. But you said you get hundreds of visitors. You said somebody else gets 400 visitors a year. Several get 200 plus. So when we're talking about could, Doug, what if could happens and all 35 of them or whatever get 3 campers every night all summer long?
Well, I don't care, but the likelihood, actually, one of the things I did when I kind of contacted all of the businesses that are on the Amory website, I actually had them complete a survey of what they do, who to contact, that kind of business, the stuff that you would expect. But I also asked them, do you already accept visitors on your site? And if you do, any time of the year, any day of the summer, or is it by appointment only? Loads of them. These are working farms, only by appointment or my scheduled activity, right? And I said, and if you could have overnight stays, I didn't describe anything. If you could have an overnight stay, are you even interested in something like this? Lots of them said no. No, I haven't got the time for it. I haven't got the interest in it.
You know what makes me get, you know what makes me as someone in agriculture, you know what makes me give time and interest in it?
Making money.
Making money. So once you prove that I can make money at it, what I didn't have any interest in a month ago or last summer, I'm going like, wow, this lady down by Amherst, she is raking the money in.
Bucks a weekend, boy.
$1,000 a weekend. I'm in. You know what? A year ago, I filled out a survey and said, I don't want anything to do with this.
Brad, I'll go to her farm before I go to your farm.
Just
You
remember,
will put me to work and I won't come back. I might go to her farm and
just
come back.
remember, there's still a Clampo's warrants out for your job. So I'm fired.
Jason, can I ask you a question? It lists travel trailers, camping units, and tents. Well, travel trailers and tents don't have onboard facilities.
We use the homestead.
They use the homestead.
Homestead.
Travel trailers do.
Dormitories usually have
Oh, they
their
do?
own
Okay.
water.
I
Park
don't-
models do not.
Yeah.
You know,
Tents don't.
Course don't.
They
But
use-
that's the same, the public health.
So that was the public health for the temporary camping permit that the homestead had to provide water, sanitary, sewer.
Okay.
So we need to find out what the state would let us do before we can actually do it. Right?
No, we have this part, and that's public health. We don't.
Public
need-
health, they do
That's
have.
public health will fit it in, whatever they want to do.
Do you have any information?
Actually, it's from other parts of the country.
Nothing in Wisconsin. There's nobody else in Wisconsin allowing.
No, we would be kind of a place that people would be looking at, actually. But they're already looking at us because of the number of things that we've already done in agritourism. I mean, just the things that we've done so far. I was invited to write a full-page article in a magazine. You know, oh my gosh, this is what Emery's doing? That's kind of amazing. So,
What we need is public health back in here.
But that's my,
To separate us out, that here's what we can do on our side in zoning. Jason said some of those ideas, and then we have to take public health. They have to do theirs.
right.
And
But
then
if
see
at
what
the
they're
end, but if at the end of the day, we're for something and we say, yeah, we think you should be able to do this, but public health says no, it didn't do us any good to pass it.
Right.
Yeah.
Brian Hobbs has already been here,
Yeah.
you know, shared with us what the temporary camping permit looks like.
if I sit down, I'm kind of lightheaded right now.
Yeah.
I got low blood pressure, so.
There's water too,
Yeah.
right there.
So there's something I do.
Just so you know,
Oh. That falls legal.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Okay, we're ready to come back. Are you doing good?
Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
So we'll, kind of take over, but we're gonna kind of let this one go till next.
Right, yeah, we'll, made a note, so we'll bring this back at a subsequent meeting.
Okay.
These offline, Jason and I and Kim talked about sharing these provisions with the CSA and farm to table community and providing some input as well as helping define the farm definition. So we'll just try to stay on task. We still have some time, you know, as we're entering the winter season, so. But with that said, yeah, I guess we're at Chairman O'Connell, we're on
Yeah.
agenda item 9.
Yep, Bob. I mean, are we gonna bring Bob in from health then again too, just to see what we
Brian,
can?
come on. Yeah.
Or Brian, yes.
What we'll do is that we want them to get all this out there, the people give us an idea. All the people might have a different definition. Get some of those, then we'll get all that, then we'll invite Brian again.
Yep,
See if there's
okay.
anything we can change there, or if we can't.
Everybody knows where we're at. It's
So that,
what we can or
the
can't
two
change. Yep,
double permits, yeah, what we can change or not change.
okay.
Make sense of it that
I brought the flip chart. That's where we're at, you think about what we can control. We're thinking about our division. It's the annual permit.
Yeah.
The temporary camping permit, that's public health and it's statutorily defined. So that's, we want to revisit that. We can have Brian
This might be a way to
season.
should help, you know. Should we get- You know, if that makes sense. I think it would be- Otherwise, like you said, how do you make money? All right.
So we're on agenda item number 9.
Yeah.
I think we provide this in last times. Forgive me if it wasn't in this packet. Was it in this? No. Okay, again, this was the 15 trail projects that were approved by the county board. I and our team have met with Alta. We have met with the city of St. Croix Falls. Some of these projects involve some intergovernmental cooperation. Met with them, city rather, last Friday to talk about E3, which is enhancing the Gandy Dancer Trailhead and the city lot there. We've also met with Alta on the Comprehensive Trail Network Plan. They will be doing pre-construction design for the top 6 projects. And like Mo mentioned earlier today, once Alta provides their formal presentation to PTAG, which is scheduled December 13th, ESC, which is the December 15th meeting, and then the county board, we're probably looking at January meeting, full county board. Once that has been presented, we'll sit down with Public Works and find a way to implement at least 6 of the projects in 2022. So that's that update. Cattail Master Plan is, if you recall, at the last meeting, we sent a letter to Steven Schmelzer. He is the Bureau Director with the Trails Division, Parks and Trails Division for the DNR. We asked for a 30-day response. It's been 14 days, so
It'll be 30.
it'll probably be 30. So I would imagine, yes, this will be on next week's or next meeting's agenda.
Kim, bring your
Kim,
personal
3
one
years is
before
coming
next
up.
time, could you?
It's. Like, you're on hold. You're on hold.
The
Get
3
to it right away.
That'd be
He's
3
here.
more
What?
years.
What?
3 more years.
3 more years.
Letter has worked for us in the past.
He might be done at the end. So somebody else is.
For 3 years.
3 more years, because we gotta hire somebody doing it. This year. Hire them. This year. Figure out what they were doing. And then this year, decide it's gonna work.
They get comfortable in their job.
Yeah.
You get to hear what it's like working with the DNR.
9C, I just want to share with you, we have a Polk County Environmental Services Division Facebook page. Please like us. I think we're up to 12. Our goal is to
So like and
please my
share,
wife.
like and share, right?
Yes.
So 14 people work, 2 of the workers aren't even in.
Like and share it.
But you have to be on Facebook.
Right. So there's
So I'm
that.
safe.
Neither do I, but I lurk on my wife, so made sure she was liked our page. So yeah, look for that. The intent is really to share our success stories. It's outreach, education. It's really a product of, well, we should have done this in the past, but went to big Church Pine Lake Association meeting. They had a lot of questions about our shoreland zoning district and a number of changes that have happened in the last few years. We do amend our ordinances a lot. So this is a way to disseminate those new policy changes in real time. And so there's that value. So, but I know Land and Water, their goal is to at least have one item to post a week about what they're doing. Again, it's also applies to land information, zoning, forestry, and register of deeds. So there's
They're
that.
just testing. So, they're testing you to see if you know. Like, you know that?
I shared with them the Ascent permitting software and how you, me, Doug, we can all access and check up on the status of our permits or our neighbors' permits.
Our neighbors.
So there's that.
Numbers are always interesting.
So that was a good investment. Yeah, again, it's Polk County. I know there's Polk counties practically in every state. We all know that. So it's Polk County Environmental Services Division. It's a long title for our Facebook page, but you have to search for a little bit. Otherwise, you wind up liking the one in Iowa. No problem.
No.
Yeah, it's critical you type in Polk County Environmental Services. It's a long way. I think Colton posted something on Basic Species. Sylvia, we want to thank you too.
Yep, thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Heard you guys are intimidating. That's ridiculous.
It wasn't heated dialogue, no, I'm kidding.
You wanted to?
Okay.
No.
I can walk.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Take care.
So for, December 1st, we'll have Mo back. Maybe I'll have an update on the decon signs. We have 2 public hearings, 2 rezones on the first. The 1 public hearing for the 2 rezones. The agritourism, assuming one
Jason,
on
yeah,
that.
put it on. Then Jason might have that. She's gonna send out
We'll get on that today.
We have-
Malia, I don't know about Malia, is there,
an update on that cemetery by next time or skip it.
If it's on, if we put it on by people, if there's something to update,
you'll let me know and I'll put it on.
Okay, go, let's go that way, yeah. Maybe skip a meeting. Send it out.
Would you like an update on the comprehensive trail and work plan? It is slated for a formal presentation on the 15th.
That keeps this.
So keep it on December 1st.
So,
May I ask a question about that? You know, the projects that were approved, you know, that one that's out by the dam, Woodley Dam,
Yep.
is that, will there be, before they start a project like that, will there be more discussion on that?
There will. We talked to Alta about that. That is one of the 6 projects they're doing the pre-construction design, and that will be in the formal presentation. We talked about concerns of that hotel.
Yeah.
So we've asked Alta to have a separate access off Highway 8, also lighting, vegetative buffer, and security fence between the 2 properties. So I'm just sharing that with you because, you know, there are those concerns.
I don't know if we put trees. That trees- Jamie, big fence.
Defense. Yeah. We've had those conversations with Alta and, you know, that's the beauty of it. Once they give their formal presentation, there's still a lot of work to do.
I mean, does the county have any liability then if something bad does happen in that area? The fact that we know that there's risk?
Well, the whole county's risk for meth, so are we liable for the whole county?
Yeah.
We know there's meth out there, so am I liable if they're doing it across the street?
I
If
think
they're
we're
doing it
gonna,
here in the parking lot,
I think
you know,
we know that we're gonna keep an eye on how that progresses and think what's the best alternative given what we're gonna do. I think we may also look at what are some other alternatives to do it. Kind of keep our finger on that pulse.
Because that's the one I'm concerned about.
Security measures.
for a fire.
He's been in Clam Falls before.
Yeah.
There's a fire. I don't know where, but hope there's a fire.
Yeah, that's one of the 6 projects, including the, you know, intensive park out in Sterling. Half of them are planning, half of them are.
Update this page.
You know, we've worked through all of this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we
Went by a month already.
we've done them all.
Yeah.
So we need to update that.
Okay. Nope, I just make sure to keep on task with that.
About Woodland parking lot. Through the state.
We are aware of all the grants. That's a great question. A lot of these projects are can be grant subsidized, particularly all the motorized opportunities. So you will be applying for grants. More than likely, those grants will be reimbursable. We'll get them in the subsequent year. So, you know, I know the county board allocated, you know, some amount. Pretty confident, we'll try to implement as many projects as we can. I'm pretty confident we won't be able to spend an allocation next year. So next season, next budget season, we'll have that conversation, whether or not to roll those remaining fund balances into subsequent. And with those projects, we'll be bringing them to you prior to construction. Well, that's something that Public Works and the planning team are going to have.
What's going on at that?
Start questioning, the ballpark is the ballpark gone? So what's going on there? I mean, a lot of speculation, but.
Yeah, I can't really speak on that. I know the plan was to remove the ballpark, create a park. It's been brought up to plant some indigenous grasses and make it sort of. I really can't speak on
Not
that.
a campground.
Not a campground.
Okay, because that was a concern. They're like, is Polk County putting in a campground? I'm like,
Is that Polk County land yet?
Yeah.
It's the new Polk County campground.
that's what people are saying. It's like, you know how that rumor mill gets going? I'm like, I will ask.
Maybe it's where they'll park all the horses.
You have to put up a slide.
It's time to go, folks.
One last thing for December 1st, the wildlife damage crop prices.
It's always fun.
That is always fun.
Yeah.
Have to go home and
Another
study.
browbeating for Brad.
They shut up County this year. There was no damage.
Please come in on the 1st to get your endorsement of those crop
I'm
prices.
ready.
I have to see if I got my list, because remember we kept checking the same people.
Right. Give us the prices and we vote.
But they have the same people coming every year, and they fence some of that now, so do them.
So the corn, soybeans, what crops are you looking?
Corn, soybeans,
Trees,
the vegetable guy, because he wanted 25 grand for that half acre. That was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the ones they fenced. So when certain animals too, these don't count.
the thing that has wildlife.
But they have that list of wild.
Geese. Yeah, geese. Yeah, we paid out on geese claims last year.
Oh, I was there.
Yeah.
That's probably why it counted.
That's why
Well,
nobody checked it out.
Sandhill cranes don't count. Because
Yeah,
they're protected.
I think I read that list. Your dad always asked for, he said, get my cannon and shoot.
I know.
Shoot the cannon and stuff.
And gauge works way better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually hit him. How about we had a discussion about, seeing if we can get the LiDAR through budget, have that, our committee kind of see if we want. Why we get to that. You're gonna do it internally.
I think I was gonna, yeah, I think
What you want,
I
500?
have a presentation. It's depressed, but I understand it might be in front of county board in December.
Oh, okay.
That's
In
my
front of the whole board, have us,
I mean, I could share with you again.
we can get 5 votes here.
Which is.
There's the light on.
Don't be counting all of us, then.
Don't be counting Brad.
I voted against playground equipment.
I know, but that's
Yeah.
different.
He didn't get to
We
squeeze
were
out.
gonna cover that, be able to address that when we talk about the resolution, if that's an amendment.
No, this is standalone.
LiDAR,
Yep, that's standalone. That's all, it should be all by itself, because that's,
Well, I thought they were gonna,
they're gonna put them all in one big list. Yeah. Each one should actually be standalone. That's why we should have that meeting.
Well-
We should have a special county board meeting.
now,
Should have.
I know what you want, but the question is, we have on the agenda, Ms. Kelly's resolution. Because we put a date certain on that at the
Yeah.
next board meeting.
Let's move it on.
So
Yeah.
then the question is that's a time when people could
And-
discuss that, but they also want to amend it, they can, or they could say, let's not discuss this at all. That
My
would be a vote.
feeling was to do that, because I thought we'd have a meeting just for all of our stuff. Straighten it all up and do it. Away we go. Instead of just nitpicking all over the world with it.
That-
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I asked this at the full board, but how come the works, the safety and works, we had a resolution coming out of there for the mobile command. Voted on it. It was never brought up.
it wasn't a resolution.
right.
It was
Well,
the
it was intended
recommendation.
to be a,
It was a recommendation that was brought up. And one of those things where we really didn't have a lot of information on it. I mean, Tanya brought it up first to say, hey, we need a mobile unit to go around and do our public health stuff. Sheriff office said, well, we could use a command center for communications. And nobody's really looked at what do we really need, and what's it going to cost. Somebody threw out a number of 550,000, and that's because they just, probably this much. Communications, if we wanted to have a backup communications center like was discussed, that may be close to $1 million alone. So what I need to do is get the sheriff and Tanya, the sheriff's office and Tanya to get together and say, do you have a proposal? What is needed? And why and what's the cost? But I guess what I'm saying, we're not there yet with the command center. It was a nice idea. But we really, it was a spontaneous spur of the moment.
It had never been talked about before. It wasn't on the capital improvement plan. It wasn't
No,
anywhere.
it wasn't. It just
It
popped up.
just popped up.
Been on the sheriff.
Oh,
Ellen Burrow stood up here and talked about it.
But it wasn't on there.
it wasn't on.
Updated plan.
Well, no, because take it different.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he brought it up, but only because after he came in to talk about the microwave communications and then also the spare tower, topic of the command center had come up and a question was raised and he talked about it.
That's the way we
Well,
let it go.
Yeah.
We'll discuss it at their meeting.
Yeah. But that's why I thought we'd have a meeting so that we could discuss all of, there's so many different things.
But how do you, when you have that meeting, what's the criteria for determining,
That's what we were trying to.
Like when they
That's what
did-
we were trying
when they
to-
did P-TAG, we hired a consulting firm that did all the projects, and then they had this giant spreadsheet and all this criteria, and it was all weighted, and it was a long process to go through.
Yep.
And are we gonna do something like that with all these projects?
Well, we can't really do that because we need to pick the scope of, are we doing it county-based? Are we doing it outside entity-based? Are we doing a combination of both? And then you can put your list.
Yeah,
We haven't even decided if we're county-based or if we're,
No,
you know,
and I
But
can tell you,
We've already waited it, because we do the CIP, we've already had the people go through this whole thing, and that's what the CIP is for. I think we, you know, it's everybody's opinion, but why didn't we make everybody go through a CIP, all these departments and do that, make that list up and go, okay, this is extra money, how is it extra? If we considered it
if you look at that
loss of
CIP,
revenue, we lost the money, so we gotta go back to our CIP, what are we gonna do this year?
I say let's make it simple. Send it all to Clam Falls and we'll take care of the problem.
Will you pay for the dam at least?
like if you look
If you
at the
said it all.
CIP, the $375,000 for that repeating tower is nowhere to be seen in the
not on
CIP.
our,
Yeah, so when did
So
it
the-
come up?
Yeah,
See, that's it. Some of this stuff just came up because they consider we have free money. There is no free money in this world. That just drives me nuts.
Hey,
So you guys are on the agenda items for this committee.
Well, that's part of it that we want.
Okay,
We want it. It's close.
circling back.
Circling back to the LiDAR.
we're on
Okay.
the far side of the circle right now.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Okay. The big hands on the sex, we're done. Sad. It's gonna circle around to it. I just think we needed more order before we started just picking and choosing projects. I just thought we were.
but we should have done that
Before the
recycling
should have.
center.
Yeah. we should.
Because the recycling center now, 1.6 million, we don't even know what it's going for.
They said they had a list of stuff,
That's for another.
and that had to start.
Make a motion to reconsider.
Agree. I tried to take it off the first time because there was no money. It shouldn't even have came to us. That's something for example. How these can slip through without being ready. Resolution without a money amount.
To the process, the resolution was
I
brought.
couldn't have went through the process.
I
because
think
there was no money
everybody in
amount.
here voted for it.
But I mean, I think we're getting resolutions that are coming up, no money amounts. Shouldn't be on our, should not be on any of our, shouldn't be on the county.
I think you have a valid point.
Because it says in our rules of order, it has to go through the general government. So unless it went through there, we shouldn't even see it.
Mine went through there. Federal government and public work.
Somebody still cut it off, didn't
Yes.
they? It didn't go through the other.
Are we adding that or no?
Ad lighter, yeah, so we have it too, so that you got 5 of us to help you push
Four
it
of
out.
us.
I think
Yeah,
LiDAR's
you
good.
can't count on
I
Brad.
think LiDAR's good.
I don't know, you were talking about having the presentation. That's,
Well,
that's all I was.
It's short and sweet.
It's short and sweet. I do have an answer for your question from the last meeting. Grant award is in January.
It's what?
The grant award to subsidize about 55% of the project will be awarded in January. It's non-binding though, so in the event there isn't any resources from the county's match, we're out. In other words, the
There's no
county
guarantee
doesn't
that we
support
get
it.
it either.
What's that?
There's no guarantee we get the grant.
But it's a pretty strong application where we're
132 at the
along
fullest.
with 11 other counties.
If we don't do it now, we gotta pay the full 300. 73 years ago, getting it together.
Well, if we can,
11 now?
We're in a pool of 11.
So then it dropped, that's why it dropped. Because the first initial one we got 2 years ago was. Oh. Skip. It's coming back. This one is the one that's the high water and all this stuff.
Right, and more accurate ordinary high water mark. It's three-dimensional mapping. It's not actually 3D, but it looks three-dimensional. It uses pulse light from a plane or so it can penetrate like tree canopy, soil. So that's why we'll have a complete inventory of all culverts, which is valuable, not only what we own, but private
I know where the
culverts.
culverts are.
Right, yeah. But for our water modeling, for land and waters work, we don't have to go out there and find the
Physically
culvert.
do it.
We have-
High water, it's just for zoning anyway.
that's the Woodley Dam.
That's what it took. Woodley Dam should put it back. Have electricity.
Take the Woodley Dam.
So that's in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Presentation.
2 weeks, yeah, so that's still. Covered our work management day, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep, on the 15th, like I mentioned earlier, we have the stewardship awards. We'll have the ordinance amendments from the public hearing. We'll have Alta's final plan. So yeah, both meetings in December are.
Okay. Okay, they went down to 6, Sharon, gotta go.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Say aye.
Aye.